I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is
I'm the sad clown. Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Glue, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
We've got a very special guest. He may be your personal legal counsel. He may not, but I know him as a man who started F3 and immediately just, I think, came into the group and opened up and really became a good friend of mine. And I think over the years, I've watched him grow in his leadership through leading at QSource Paradise Island, but also taking on a role as the site Q for Golden Spike. And just continue to push guys to grow through the pandemic and helping keep guys connected and really, just look forward to our discussion today with Saul. So Saul, we've got you on. And, when we first started the podcast, they said, you better call Saul. And here we are. So that's my first joke of the day. But Saul, I wonder if you would take us back to just the beginning. How long you've been in F3, where did it start, who EH'd you, kind of the origin of the name, all of that good stuff.
Sure. So Low Man, I would say, gets the most responsibility for EHing me. He's in my parish. I think we were dropping kids off at school, and he's like, we should go have some coffee and talk about this workout group. And my guards were up immediately. I was like, what's this guy want? I mean, I knew Paul Low Man well before he started F3, but I was had my guard up. And then eventually, I think between him and a couple other guys at our parish, room service may have had a little bit of a role, no-dos, maybe not as much big one, but eventually I posted at the Oracle in October of 2018. So I'm coming up on my 3-year here. And for our first workout, we had Dufresne leading it. And I think it was maybe his VQ, maybe not, but he had us crawl through a tunnel of shit, basically. Sorry for my language. And that was his nod to Shawshank Redemption, which is what he was named after. So I got home from that workout. I was all muddy because it was like a muddy October day. And my wife was just like, what did you just do? You're working out with these guys and they named you Saul, and what's that about? And so that's a little background on my name. I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm not sure whoever shouted out Saul if they had intentions of one thing I would classify Saul in this show as is kind of like a cheesy advertising lawyer. I don't know if I fit the first part, but I do advertise a little bit on TV, so maybe that's where my name came from. But at any rate, it's kind of a whirlwind when you're getting named, and I was in the middle of that, and they just called me Saul, so that stuck.
Now, I would say Safe Ride is maybe more of the cheesy marketing lawyer, right, of the group. I don't know. He's the one you always see on TV and billboards and stuff, right? I don't know.
Yeah, they do quite a bit of advertising as well at his firm, so maybe he's got me beat. But maybe so they've got the Safe Ride Home program, so hence his name. But yeah, that's kind of my backstory as far as leading up to my start with F3.
And where were you at prior, just life-wise, things going well, career going well, or what was life like for you before you started F3? I mean, did you know a lot of guys when you showed up?
A few. So, I mean, I think just like a lot of other guys' stories, they didn't know how bad they needed F3 until it came along. And that was definitely true for me. My lifestyle was very unhealthy as far as work-life balance. That's something you and I have had a lot of discussions on, and that's gotten so much better with F3, just kind of getting me focused on what's important in life, and to the point where I've gone through phases where my wife was like, are you still, is everything okay at work? Like, are you working enough? You used to work X amount of hours and now you're only working this many hours. And I was like, everything's good. I'm just like, it got me refocused. And so that was a problem before F3, and that continues to be something that I gotta make sure I keep in check. And then, you know, I'd say on the friendship side, where I was at with F3 was a lot of good friends from high school, and maybe I can't remember what the terminology is in Free to Lead. Is it like legacy friends? Is how they describe it, and that was so true. Like, I had plenty of good memories with these guys, but what was the depth of the conversations we had on the few times we did get together was mostly just kind of very surface level conversation. And so I've gained so many more valuable relationships through F3 and gone beyond just kind of surface level talk with guys. So those have been two big things, I would say: friendships and just better with the work-life balance.
Well, and on that note, I mean, I remember sort of early on, you know, I feel like you had mentioned, like, you used to get up at the same time that you would get up to work out, but you would go to work. And then at a certain point, you had shifted so much that I remember asking you to lead at Paradise, and you were sort of like, I don't know that would be good for my, you know, kind of my Concentrica, which was a really good decision, you know, to really put them first in the decision-making process. So yeah, I feel like I can definitely see some of that. How about the first staff, or maybe first, second, and third? Like, where do you feel like you have grown, and maybe where you headed going forward?
So as far as like for each F, from the beginning 3 years ago to now, starting with fitness, I mean, I've gotten more fit by doing something besides just running, which is what my main thing was before F3. So I wouldn't say like I've conquered that, but that's of my least concern out of the 3 Fs. The fellowship has definitely grown with the more meaningful relationships, and kind of getting to know guys. Kind of, if I could just make like one of the big things for me with getting to know guys in F3 has been pre-runs. And I know that's a big backbone of our relationship, Plague, is that like when there was less members in F3, you almost had to like text each other to make sure someone was pre-running that morning. It wasn't just a given. I mean, that's how small the numbers were, because why would you want to show up a half an hour early to go run by yourself? So through those pre-runs, you know, I got to know you and so many other guys just on a lot better level. So the fellowship has definitely excelled. And I would say like probably just the biggest thing that needs more attention, but it's not quite there, is you know, faith. And you know, my background is K through 12 Catholic education. Skipped over to Iowa State for public education for 4 years, and then did law school at a Jesuit Catholic institution for 3. So it's been in the background of my life. But, you know, kind of maybe for different reasons over the last year and a half with the pandemic, I've been doing remote church. I'm back in church now, but that's probably definitely something that comparing it to 3 years ago when I started to now, you've seen the least amount of improvement.
Do you feel like F3 is giving you opportunities to accelerate in those areas? And if so, I guess, in what ways?
Well, yeah, starting with faith, the opportunities are out there, and it's kind of on me to take better advantage of those or utilize those better. And faith doesn't have to be just strictly doctrine and going to church. It can be a lot of the community service stuff that we do. I do some of that, you know, stuff for the community outside of F3 with coaching my kids in various sports. I feel like I'm committed there. But as far as like opportunity in the first two Fs and what F3 has presented, I mean, it's just the program of having a set time at different locations throughout this city, 6 days a week, where you can show up and meet someone and work out with them is just one of the best structures or ways that F3 is set up, because it allows me for sure to connect with someone early in the morning, working out, taking care of those first two Fs. And I think it's just like part of the secret sauce. I mean, and whenever I go to F3, and I'm not like a 6 day a week guy, but when I do go, that day has started off on the right foot for two major reasons, being the first two Fs. I mean, getting that exercise in, getting those endorphins going, but also talking to people, because my job doesn't really lend itself to probably all the meetings that the plague has in his job and other guys that are in meeting heavy jobs. So like the social aspect for me to get that going in the morning is pretty huge, because I may be a hermit in my office for the rest of the day after that. And so that just gives me a little bit of a boost for the day.
I feel like too, I mean, there's a lot of it flows together, right? I mean, some of those free run conversations we certainly get on faith related topics and sort of talking about different things that kind of make you think differently, or pick up on something that, oh, maybe I should try that. So, you know, it's there too. I think, you know, and just kind of zooming in a little bit on that third F, you know, do you feel like, are there other opportunities that maybe we should be looking at to help make that easier for guys, or is it really just the personal accountability on your side, or is it something we need to be doing better as in general of like giving guys more opportunities to connect and zoom in on a faith perspective?
For me personally, it's just about accountability on my side. I think Wentworth does a great job, and Lemon Law did a great job leading the third F component. And we've had guys that have just, you know, free to lead to do something like they want to. Tube Socks last year put together something for a run around Thanksgiving, and there's kind of countless other examples. I don't want to forget, you know, Sparty, who's undertaken the major F3 Foundation Brick Builder Scholarship Fund, you know, just so many things out there, you know. For me, I think F3 Omaha they present the opportunities. It's more about me utilizing those opportunities. Yeah,
totally agree. And even if for the foundation they didn't choose the best lawyers in the group, you know, I think it is still a good thing. No, it's funny sitting here with two lawyers on the phone, and no, that's really good. I wonder too if you know, you participated in a lot of Q-Source discussions, and clearly you've read Free to Lead. I can hear that just in the discussion. And you know, one of the things that I've zoomed in on in my life is the Concentrica model, and you start looking at where that comes up in Free to Lead, and it's really this point where you know, guys are bringing up community sort of volunteer opportunities. And they say, well, where do you start, right? At Free to Lead, it's kind of going through, where do I start giving back? Where do I start helping? And they pull up the Concentrica model, and we'll start helping with the people that are in closest proximity. And so I love what you mentioned about like coaching your kids' sports team is totally a way to invigorate male community leadership, right? There's a lot of dads that aren't even showing up to their kids' games, let alone coaching their kids' team. And so I think that's a fantastic example of, you know, just equipping men to lead in those areas too, because that's a lot of fun. You get to be with your kids, but you're also influencing a lot of other people too. So I think that's a really good example of like you're serving. It doesn't always maybe feel like it, but it's really, really good example.
Well, thank you. And you guys will be happy to know for my son's sixth grade basketball team, we do a lot of warm-ups that would be something you would see at Warm-A-Rama.
Nice. I love that. That's awesome. See, you're teaching them all three Fs too. What could be better?
They've got the cadence count too.
Do they? Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. It's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about, so as time went on, and I think just right sizing your expectations and stuff with your family, eventually you did have another opportunity to lead at an AO, and you took over as the site Q at Golden Spike, and did that for, a year and a half. And, tell me how was that experience for you? What, did that change anything or give you a different lens on anything, or what was that like?
I mean, as far as just being at the Spike on Fridays, it was less that, it was more the leadership behind F3 Omaha that I got a front row seat to, that I got to see the inner workings and what's the big picture and what are we trying to do. But certainly, like, on a more local level at the actual Golden Spike AO, it was a great opportunity to kind of lean into some new guys that were showing up there, and they were also new to F3. Some of them hadn't queued yet, and I tried as much as I could to see if I could get some BQs. And I don't know how many BQs I got in the year that I was the site Q there, but it was very much an effort that I had, a goal I had, because that's, lock in step with what the mission is. We got to get those guys out for their VQ, because I think everything kind of snowballs from there, if they stick with it. But that's one factor in it.
And you kind of had to see Mother Goose coming, right? I mean, that guy just came in and immediately started accelerating. But what was that process like, finding another guy and kind of building him up to prepare him to take over?
I don't think I needed to build him up, but he's doing such a great job. It's almost like, man, I wish I would have done this or that. And he's just doing a lot of good things at the Spike. I've known him, pre F3, because we both went to the same high school, but I think he did his VQ maybe at the Spike, and he's got a background as a football coach, and everyone was just blown away. I'm not sure if either one of you guys were at that, but he did a great job there, and he's adding new things, like there's a rosary after the workout, which is something I've not seen offered at any F3 Omaha site. And he does that because he can't make it to coffee, but he figured out a way to kind of have his own touch with Golden Spike. So he's doing a great job there. I did not prepare him. He is doing a great job with that site. And shout out to Big One. He did a great job launching the site and getting it going, because that's certainly a tough thing to do, is to set the table, so to speak, and start a new AO.
Yeah, those gold shirts, man. Oh, I don't know if you've seen those. They look pretty nice. The gold shirts with the black writing on them and logo.
Yeah,
it's a first. I'm remembering, whose VQ I remember at the Spike was Slaughter, Sergeant Slaughter, and he took us to that hill, and he went to the bottom, and he just goes, "Welcome to the slaughterhouse." And I remember a couple guys, I think, took off and left, Pony left. And, it was like, okay, what's he going to do now? And then he broke out those lights that are in movies. I've only ever seen them in movies. You snap the light and throw it into a dark alley, and it lights everything up. Anyway.
Something a former military / veteran would do.
Yeah. I wondered, any fun memories or, things that you remember the last 3 years that you would share, just things that stood out to you as being exciting or fun or memorable?
There's so many. The first CSOP would probably be one of them. I think that was spring of 2019, April of 19. That was certainly up there. There's also, you kind of just remember some of your first time, your VQ, or it's the first time you queued someplace. I was thinking about Woodshed the other day, Pony, and that I'll dig through some of my old workouts if I'm planning a new one. So I'll reread some of the COTs I said there. And one of the things I said at like that COT, which was at the beginning of 2019, was something about just how welcoming of a culture F3 Omaha is. And that still, I believe, is a big part of our culture, and continuing to engage with guys that show up for the first time as an FNG or continue to come back. So some of them kind of winding around, but some of those first workouts I led, and just kind of taking a side note, like, as far as it's funny looking back at that, and we still have that same culture here. And then I really enjoyed the Brick Builder event this spring or summer. That was a great time as well. At one point, I did have kind of a fondness for the winter and like working out in the winter, but I'm not sure if I'm becoming bitter. But that's less and less one of my favorite pastimes of F3, is when it gets super, super cold. So my frequency of posts during the winter, you might see kind of drop compared to where it's at now. But I'm not going away, but it's going to be less frequent.
I will say that would probably be my only disadvantage of being a site queue, is you have no excuse not to be there in the cold winter time, in the winter quarters, anything that's going on. I mean, we did a queue swap between Combine, Golden Spike during the blizzard, and it was absolutely brutal. But yeah, well, you kind of touched on F&Gs. I guess we usually ask, I guess, what advice would you give an F&G? And we've actually been asking as well, what advice would you give the guys if they run into an F&G?
So for the first part to the F&G, as far as advice to them, I always just tell them to lean in. And it doesn't have to be 100% lean in right away, but there's a lot of guardrails that people put up in their life, or barriers is a better way to put it. Guardrails has different meanings in F3, but like a barrier they put up in their life when they start something new. And just to kind of let your guard down a little bit and be okay with some of the goofiness that seems goofy right away at F3, the different lingo, and it's super unusual to see grown men hugging each other at 5:30 in the morning when you see each other. But if you know, we got some huggers in our group, and like, there's a lot of things that can be weird at the beginning, but just to like embrace it. And of course, just keep showing up. That's a big part of it. And I've listened to some of your guys' other guests talk about this, and maybe you guys have commented on this too, but to the FNG, like, don't think that you need to be like this guy over here that does 6 days a week, or that it's an all or nothing proposition, because you need to figure out how this new thing in your life fits in with all the other different puzzle pieces. So that's what I'd say to the FNG. To the fellow PAX member that is kind of trying to engage with the FNG at the first workout, is just to continue to have that welcoming, sort of approach with them. And I think that's a big part of our culture, is we're welcoming. We make people feel like they belong because we're open to all men. Whatever way you can do that, whether it's just partnering up with them, talking to them right away at their first workout. And then, when they're done and they get named, you just kind of leave them with a good impression of what kind of group we are. So
I love that. I always try to pair up with the FNG and then find out, what I always ask them, like, what do you want your nickname to be? And then I try to get some information on them that we could use for a name. So, and that's kind of fun, because then when you get to the circle, now my most recent failure though was a guy who we named Light Bright, whose nickname should really be A-Rod, because he was wearing, like a baseball shirt, and he doesn't, anyway.
Was he wearing a Boston Red Sox shirt, so he needed to be like named a Yankee or something like that?
Yeah, I think he was wearing an Atlanta Braves. It was either going to be Ricky Vaughn, from Major League, or, but I don't know. He was a volleyball player, and So I just was like, A-Rod, we're calling you A-Rod. And I called him A-Rod during the workout, and then his name got finalized as Light Bright. So I still call him A-Rod when I see him.
Well, I think a topic that needs to be further explored is just the science or art of the naming. I mean, there's plenty of guys that I'll stand next to that'll say, okay, just wait until like 2 or 3 names get out and then put yours out there. Because if you come in with too good of a name right off the bat, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. Wait time. Wait time is always getting his name and his names in there.
Yeah.
I'm convinced people don't want to give you the satisfaction, Plague, of getting the name.
Yeah, there could be. I did name Wentworth's son Frosted Tips, though. That name did get used. Just if you're out there, Frosted Tips, we can't wait to see you, buddy.
I think he begrudgingly goes along with that name.
Oh, he has to. Yeah. What you mentioned being welcoming, and I'm curious. As a site Q, did you identify, or were you able to sort of identify some best practices, or like, what are those little things that you feel like do create a welcoming experience? Is it like the guy who brings the FNG should team up with him? I know Pony's got some opinions on that, or is it like talk him through cadence, or what do you think is best to create that welcoming environment?
I mean, a lot of things you just said, and I think either if you bring the FNG, I think it's okay to either team up with them or not team up with them. Kind of depends on what the FNG's personality is. If they feel like if they're really shy and they're gonna feel like they're on too much of an island and you need to kind of hold their hand a little bit the first workout, that might be good in the long run for them to come back. And it just kind of depends on the FNG that you bring. But as the site Q at the end of the workout, you get their contact information. You're going to have either through the Google Sheets roster or just in your phone, you're going to have their information. So I think it could be on the site Q. I know Slow Pitch is really good about this. He'll reach out to people and say, hey, it was good to see you today. And I think he does that practice with new guys as well. And I think that's real important for engagement at the beginning, and having that person basically not be a one-off FNG that only posts once or twice. So all of those I think are good.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think there's a lot of little things, that we can do. Realize that like they're coming into this and you were once where they are too. I've noticed the longer you guys are in F3, there's we can get territorial, or we can act a certain way when new guys come in, and we want to be the same welcoming group that was there when you started, when I started. The guys were all really welcoming.
On that note, like in general, we have grown so much with numbers that I'll admit, like, I liked the smaller groups. I liked when we were a certain size, and when I could show up and know a bunch of people. I went to the coop this morning, and I knew a handful of guys, but I didn't know everyone. And there's no problem with me getting out of my comfort zone to meet more people. And I think we go in phases. I mean, like, we have a bunch of new guys join us in the warmer parts of the year, and we need to expand and get more sites so we can get to that like low teens number basically for numbers. But it's been a good thing overall. But I will acknowledge a little bit of maybe grumpiness I had during the process, like, there's only 2 options or 3 options on this day of the week, and I'd for sure see so-and-so if I went here, and for sure see so-and-so if I went there. Now it's like, I may go 3 weeks without seeing some of the guys that I used to see 2 or 3 years ago, and that's okay. That's the opportunity for me to build more relationships. But I did want to throw that in there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel your pain. It's been interesting because we haven't had a choice. There wasn't, nobody asked if we wanted to expand. There was just a need and pressure from the packs, and so we moved where the packs were going. But it's those guys you used to see every day that now there's 5 or 6 workouts every day. So good luck figuring out where somebody's gonna be, right?
Like I saw Huffy this morning. He was like, "Where you been?" And I've been like, I kind of like took offense to it. I was like, "Well, I've been working out, man. Like I've been working out. Where have you been?" And like we're all just used to seeing the same people, and now there's so many options. It's like I was working out. I was just at one of the 5 or 6 options that day.
I want to back up a little bit. You had mentioned early on just kind of and I don't know if this is a constant battle or just something you've got to be aware of, but this idea of like work sort of pulling you back in a lot of times is trying to be number one priority. Have you found anything that's been helpful to just, redirect or pivot priorities when work starts to pull? Is there like a trigger or a thing or something you found that you've been able to effectively right size priorities again?
I try to be deliberate with the days I don't work out, limiting the days I go in early. Currently, my schedule's, about 3 posts a week, and then one other day of the week I work from home before I take the kids to school, and then one other day I go in early, so I don't take the kids that day. And I think the time with them on the way to school and talking to them I'm not going to get that time back. So especially with us spending more time at home last year at the beginning of COVID, I started to transition to I'm going to take them to school every day, and that's going to be my thing. So my kids keep me in check with making sure that I don't just get to the office too early and I don't see them until 5. Like I want to drop them off at school. And that's been one thing that kind of makes sure that work doesn't get the better of me. And then like I've got a hard stop time of 5 o'clock at the office, and then I'm out. I'm trying to be very structured about that so things don't spill into family time, friend time. I just try to keep that stuff in check. I can feel, it's kind of weird to talk about like it's an addiction or something, but it has been somewhat of an addiction in my life at some points because, like you said, when I started going to F3, getting up early wasn't the problem. Like I was getting up way before 5 to be in the office. But I start to know like when I'm feeling kind of unbalanced with my commitments in my Concentrica. And it's hard to describe all the other things I do to make that happen. But those are a few things definitely that being structured with my schedule can kind of ensure that I'm not giving work too much attention and family life too little attention.
Man, you nailed that. I think, and Pony was taking notes, which is good on you, Pony. But I think we all can get that way, right? I mean, as men, we want to add meaning and value to life and the things we do. And oftentimes work is like right there, like teed up, right? Here's the thing you can do to add value. But you have to really introspectively sort of search for like what's real, right? So like you mentioned, my family and this time with my kids that I'm never going to have again, I need to do that right now, because my job will be here in 10 years or a job of some sort. My kids won't be this age or want to talk about these things or, whatever, ever again, right? They're only a certain age at once. So I love that. And that's been a struggle of mine too, is like, I'm really good at sending emails and attending Zoom meetings, but those things don't add a ton of value. And I've come to enjoy, there are mornings where I don't have meetings and I get to take Georgia, my daughter, to school. And her school's far enough away from our house right now that it's a good drive with her on the way there. And then it's a good conversation with my Emma on the way back. So kind of both of those relationships get filled up, but I appreciate you sharing that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I just appreciate you guys' perspective here, because I do come from a different lens of, I just turned 30 and I'm young in my career. So I definitely still have those aspirations of, hey, I need to work my ass off as hard as I can, as long as I can, put in the hours and do those things. And it's just a good reminder that, yeah, it's okay to do those things. But, you know, I admitted to Plague today in our discussion of Bible study that this last week and a half I was prepping for a jury trial. I was probably neglecting my M somewhat, right? I wasn't pouring enough into that relationship because I was putting too much emphasis on this one side. So I definitely commend you for that, and it's an inspiration that I should recalibrate. I should do those things that you guys are acting upon right now. So I definitely appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, when you've got a baby coming, so you'll your schedule, you won't have your own schedule anymore. You will be at the whim of trying to keep that human being alive. But I have regrets about how little I was around for my oldest, who turned 12 about a week ago. But I was at the beginning of the career. I was 25, just out of law school. My wife and we got pregnant right away. And I was just loving being a lawyer. I can't say I'm quite at that love still these days. It's a good career and everything, but I was grinding, and I would leave the house early. I wouldn't see him. And then, he was a really good sleeper, so he'd go to bed at 6:30 at night, and I would be home at 6. So I saw him like a very small window each day. So you never get that time back, but you can always work harder later on in life once the kids are out of the house, or whatever. But we've all got 24 hours to work with every day, so use it wisely.
Man, that's that really great insight and advice. I appreciate you going there with us. I just really respect your opinion, and I know it's something a lot of guys identify with, Saul. It's just, how do we all get better in those areas? And it's an adjustment for us all, right? So none of us are perfect or have this thing figured out, and we probably won't. At least none of the guys I know have it figured out. So yeah, I just appreciate you sharing that with us. I will. I'm curious. I don't know if you have any major opinions on your least favorite exercise. We have tended to ask some of those questions as well, but any other advice or insights you would share with the PAX, just in your experience?
So I'm going to give you a non-answer here, and what I'm going to say is I've heard you guys ask this question, and my non-answer is that there is an exercise out there for every PAX member that is their kryptonite, and there's a exercise that is their number one strength. And you would not know it looking at all the different individuals and shapes and sizes, but some guys just totally crush burpees, and then some guys, burpees are their kryptonite and they can't do it. But like iron PAX, for example, is something where you see how quick some of these guys get stuff done, and you're like, I would never place, no offense to whoever, anonymous PAX member, I would never place you to crush that many burpees in however many minutes. And that's I think everyone's got a huge strength in an exercise, and everyone's got a huge weakness. But I can't say I've got something I really just hate as an exercise.
Are you eyeing your career as a politician?
Yeah.
Following your legal career?
I was gonna say, like a true lawyer, man, there's no reasonable doubt in that answer at all, right? I'm not sure I even know what that term means to use it there, but I like that answer. I think that's good, and I think you're right. I mean, I think it's definitely not been the same exercise for everybody. Hey, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take us out in a name-orama.
Before you do that, I'm gonna jump in and say I appreciate you guys doing this.
Oh, man.
It's a lot of fun to listen to you guys talk to people. Something I do is I'll listen to some of your podcasts on Sundays while I'm doing yard work or whatever. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, man. We loved having you on. This was a very insightful interview. So you got to come up with a creative name for it now. The verdict is out. I don't know. All right.
You'll get it done.
Brandon Flehardy, 35, The Plague.
The Plague. John Whitworth, 30, Pony Express.
Nay.
Sean Cuddigan, 38, Saul.
Saul. Nice job. Love it, man. That was
Appreciate
it.
it, man.
Thanks, guys.